Well, Major Garrett is at the President-elect Trump's future home, the White House, there in the background. Major, in just a matter of hours, President Obama will welcome his successor, Donald Trump, to the White House. And this will sort of symbolically begin the transition of power. So what is the end goal of a meeting like this? What are they likely to discuss?
Well, the end goal of a meeting like this historically has just been to say the matter is settled, the election is over, and we are now working on bringing this new president comfortably and rationally into the power structure of the White House. That will be a part of today's meeting, to be sure. But there's a larger aim here for both Donald Trump and President Obama. The protests in the street are a real reaction to a thunderstruck nation, or at least a partially thunderstruck nation, with some deep anxiety about what a Trump presidency might mean for this country. And Donald Trump and Barack Obama, the current president, have an obligation they both understand to make this meeting one where it is not just peaceable, that's a bare minimum, but conciliatory in a way that sends a signal to the country that it's okay. This is not something to be, at least initially, emotionally alarmed about. That's going to be part of the burden for President Obama and President-elect Trump as they talk and as they convey a message after their conversation to the reporters who'll be brought into the Oval Office at the end of their discussion. And one of the ways you can convey that is to have a long discussion, to talk for a while. And that won't be easy for these two. They have a bitter history, a very bitter history, not just on the campaign trail, but one in which for 5 years, Donald Trump as a private citizen built the beginnings of his political visibility, saying this president was illegitimate because he wasn't even born in America. That's some pretty heavy history, and they're going to have to work that out. But one thing I can tell you about these meetings, having covered them before, if you've ever been in a circumstance in your own life when you're in kind of an exclusive place, whether it's a club or a party or a sporting event, and you see a friend who you vaguely know and you wonder, hey, how'd they get here? Well, this conversation is unique in American life because the current occupant of the Oval Office knows precisely how the person walking in to that Oval Office for the first time got there, because they've watched the campaign. They know the rigors. They know the precise difficulty of getting into that office. And immediately, whatever the past history has been, whatever their political differences, whatever animosities, much of that dissolves because of respect conveyed over that process of getting into the Oval Office makes them closer than they've ever been before. That's the institutional aspect of the presidency. And it dissolves differences almost immediately, and it becomes, as has often been said in American politics, the most exclusive club in America.
Although, Major, I'm sure you'll appreciate this. I'm of the school of Groucho Marx, which says, you know, I wouldn't want to be a club that would have me as a member of that club.
Exactly. Me too.
Yeah,
me
I think
too.
You're in the same boat. That's why.
But that's not what the presidency is, and it's not what the presidents feel once they take the office and once they have succeeded in their striving and pursuit of that office. It changes you. It changes you from the minute you have won the presidency and you have that hyphenated elect next to your name. And every moment thereafter, the presidency itself, the nation that turns its, in some cases, expectant, some cases yearning, and sometimes skeptical eyes toward you, you know you are now in that role and you'll never be the same again. That process is beginning for Donald Trump, and part of the things that I guarantee you President Obama will convey to him is what that's like and what it means and the burdens that come with it.
Major, you've seen, obviously, these protests that have been happening across the country, and I wonder, is it up to President Obama at this point to reassure Americans who are fearful of a Trump presidency?
It's not his obligation to say you have no reason to be anxious. He is obliged, however, to say this is our process, and the strength of our country depends upon a baseline respect for that process. And he will often, I think he will say, and it's something that should go without saying, but in moments like this, it's important for a president to remind the nation, look, there will be honest disagreements and there will be political reactions to whatever President-elect Trump proposes to the country, whether it's on taxation or the Affordable Care Act, on trade, on environment. And that conversation will go through the Congress. It can happen on the streets, but it can be done peacefully. And that disagreement and whatever comes of it is part of our rather sometimes loud, sometimes contentious, but always peaceful democratic process. So he's not obliged to say, get over it. He's not obliged to say, get used to it. He's only obliged to say, we have a process, we have a means by which, if you have grievances, they can be aired, and they can be aired peacefully, and your representative democracy can and will work on your behalf. But before that can happen, you have to respect that part of the representative democracy just concluded.
You know, Major, when I was thinking about these meetings coming up, it seemed to me like sort of a trilogy of awkwardness. You have you have Donald Trump meeting with the president. You have Melania Trump meeting with the First Lady, and of course we know she was accused of plagiarizing the First Lady's speech. And then we have Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, meeting with Donald Trump and as well as his running mate. And we know that he has certainly been critical of the campaign, critical of Donald Trump. So what are they going to be talking about moving forward now? They have to set the agenda on what Donald Trump's presidency is going to look like from day one.
Sure. Let's talk about Paul Ryan and President-elect Trump. Again, this is one of those instances where whatever differences existed are probably going to dissolve away because Donald Trump needs Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House. There are some within the Trumpian conversation that want him to try, that is to say Trump, to oust Speaker Paul Ryan. I would be astonished if Trump would make a mistake that conspicuous and that undercutting of his own legislative agenda. He doesn't need chaos in the Republican ranks of the House of Representatives. What he needs is a House of Representatives ready to put together a legislative agenda. And the good news for an incoming Donald Trump as president-elect is Paul Ryan's already done that work. On the Affordable Care Act replacement, they have a piece of legislation ready. They have tax reform ready. They have other aspects, defense policy, things already drafted, ready-made for a incoming President Trump to say, you know what, I like that, put it on the floor of the House, move it on to the Senate. So Paul Ryan is already leveraged himself to be in a position to help this incoming president and help him right away. And that's something that I'm relatively confident, based on my conversations with those in the Trump inner circle and Republicans on Capitol Hill, that Trump is prepared to do. He doesn't want to set in motion any chaos. And what also Paul Ryan knows is, in the conversation within Republican circles, Donald Trump's won. He's the president-elect. Whatever differences they have, Trump has the mandate of the people. And Paul Ryan said that yesterday. And he also said Trump's victory margin in certain congressional districts helped keep some Republicans in their seats in the House. That helps Paul Ryan. So there's an understanding already that they are both politically and legislatively important to one another. There's no time for disagreements, and those disagreements, if they were to fester, would only undercut both. They're not interested in that.
All right, Major Garrett at the White House, where we're expecting President-elect Trump in the next couple of hours. We thank you, Major.
Sure.